Now, turning to the situation in Israel, as you know by now, the ceasefire is over after Hamas breached it on Friday afternoon. And Israel is now returning to the war, to its elimination of Hamas. It's going to be expanding its ground operations in other parts of Gaza. French President Emmanuel Macron says the goal is too broad. He says the destruction of Hamas could take a decade of fighting. And US Vice President Kamala Harris has also come out against Israel, urging Israel to do more to protect Gaza civilians, saying too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Now, Qatar, who played a key role along with the US in brokering the peace deals or the temporary pause in fighting deals between Hamas and Israel, well, Qatar's now calling for an international probe into Israeli war crimes in Gaza. Now, with all of this international condemnation, we turn our attention to Australia. And 500 of Australia's leading lawyers are insisting to the Prime Minister that Israel has a responsibility to defend itself. And it warns the Prime Minister against incorrectly interpreting international law to suit a pro-Palestinian narrative. Joining me now are two of those 500 lawyers, Barrister David Knoll and international law professor Gregory Rose. Welcome to the program. Thank you both so much for joining me. David, starting with you, why was it so important to write this letter?
Look, it's important because what we're seeing is a lack of clarity through the fog of war. We really do need to understand that Israel is engaged in self-defence and is assiduous in making sure it complies with the laws of war as it conducts its necessary effort to remove Hamas and indeed Islamic Jihad and their accomplices, all of whom have threatened to repeat the events of 7 October.
Look, Gregory, we keep hearing these demands for a ceasefire. On the surface, it sounds peaceful, but really, don't these calls for a ceasefire just mean that Israel should back off and let the terrorists thrive when we know that Hamas leadership has said that they will continue to attack Israel and Jewish people again and again and again?
Sharri, the right of self-defence involves the striking of military targets that are necessary to achieve the self-defence goal. And in this instance, the striking of Hamas targets is necessary for Israel's self-defence. So if we analyse it into Hamas's intention and Hamas's capability, destroying the intention is an intergenerational project, but destroying the capability is the objective of this war.
Exactly, and ideology is something that's potentially almost impossible to kill off. David, you know, this letter's also directed at the Foreign Minister Penny Wong. What do you make of her continued lecturing of Israel? You know, she continues to say that Israel should abide by international rules of war, the clear implication that it hasn't been.
Look, the implication is simply wrong. And one of the reasons that the letter had to be written is to set out in considerable detail both the facts and the way in which the law applies to the facts. And there have been some pretty senior people having a look at the document before it was released, and we're satisfied that it provides sound and reliable advice to the Foreign Minister.
Gregory, it seems in this war that every second journalist on the ABC, at The Guardian, at other left-wing media outlets are suddenly an expert on international law, and it's always Israel that's breaking the international law. Curiously, there's never any mention of Hamas being guilty of war crimes. You know, what do you think about the media bias when it applies to international law?
Well, international law is a political construct to a large extent, and we see the politics in action here. You mentioned Qatar in your introduction, and of course Qatar not only funds Hamas but Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera stringers are used by other news services like Reuters and BBC. So there's the effective use of Qatar's soft power in order to create psychological operations, disinformation, and to undermine Israel's self-defense effort. It is possible to destroy Hamas's capacity, but the urging of a ceasefire would prevent that from happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Gregory Rose, David Knoll, well done to both of you and to the 500 plus lawyers who have signed this letter and sent it, because you truly are experts on international law, unlike all of the biased journalists. Thank you so much for your time.